At dinner, I said, "Can't wait for the family reunion." My wife's sister laughed. "You're not invited. It's for real family." Everyone laughed. I just smiled and left. 4 days later, my wife tried to withdraw $1 for 100. I sent a screenshot. Payment denied. Must be that family-only policy. 2 days later, I heard a loud knock on my door. If there's a Guinness World Record for most emotionally damaging dinner, my wife's family could have claimed the trophy decades ago. Family dinner nights at the Myers household were like group therapy run by people who needed therapy but thought prayer, passive-aggressive comments, and boxed wine counted as healing. Every time Sophia said, "Babe, Mom's cooking dinner for everyone Saturday night," I'd feel my soul start packing its bags. That Saturday, I could already tell it was going to be one of those evenings that made me question my life choices. You know that weird dread that hits when you're halfway into your work week and someone says the word potluck? Multiply that by 10 and throw in an overcooked roast. Sophia was buzzing around our bedroom, getting ready like she was auditioning for Real Housewives of the Suburbs. Curling iron in one hand, lip gloss in the other, rehearsing fake compliments in the mirror. "Your mom's new curtains are so cute," she practiced, trying to make it sound genuine. It didn't. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the bed tying my shoes, wondering if faking food poisoning was still morally acceptable in marriage. We drove over in tense silence, her scrolling Instagram, me mentally preparing like a soldier heading into battle. The moment we pulled into her parents' driveway, that familiar smell of barbecue seasoning and generational resentment hit me. The house looked like it hadn't changed since 1998. Same beige siding, same squeaky porch swing, same yard gnome that looked like it was plotting my death. "Smile," Sophia whispered as we walked up the steps. "They'll notice if you're moody." Moody? That's her word for barely tolerating emotional terrorism with good posture. Patricia, my mother-in-law, opened the door wearing a floral apron and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "There's my favorite couple," she chirped, which was funny because last week she called me "that man your daughter married" during a phone call I accidentally overheard. Inside the dining table was already set with the good china, the kind that only comes out for special occasions or when Patricia wants to flex her imaginary wealth. Roast beef steamed at the center like a sacrificial offering. It was cheap red wine filled mismatched glasses, and seated around the table were all the usual suspects. Robert, her dad, retired, opinionated, and chronically allergic to accountability. Chloe, the oldest sister, thinks sarcasm counts as a personality. Emma, the youngest, quiet, observant, probably wondering how she got stuck with these people in the genetic lottery. And me, the outsider who somehow keeps funding the circus. I plastered on my best fake smile. "Hey, everyone." Chloe looked up from her phone. "Wow, you actually showed up." "Yeah," I said, setting down the bottle of decent wine I brought. "I figured somebody should upgrade the selection." Sophia elbowed me. "Be nice." "I am being nice. I didn't bring the good one." Dinner started with small talk, which in that family means thinly disguised competition. Chloe bragged about her new promotion at a company nobody's heard of. Robert talked about how hard it is being retired. Patricia talked about how she doesn't like to brag, but everyone at church keeps complimenting her hair. It was like being trapped inside a Hallmark movie written by narcissists. The roast beef was edible, the potatoes surprisingly creamy. For about 15 glorious minutes, it was almost peaceful. Then, because I have the survival instincts of a Labrador chasing traffic, I opened my mouth. "So," I said casually, "can't wait for the family reunion next weekend." If silence had a temperature, that moment dropped to sub-zero. Chloe froze mid-chew, exchanged glances with her parents, and then slowly turned toward me with a smirk that screamed, "Watch this." "Oh," she said sweetly, "you're not invited. It's for real family." The table erupted in laughter like a bad sitcom audience cue. Even Robert chuckled, trying to look like he wasn't enjoying it too much. Patricia covered her mouth, pretending she was horrified, but clearly delighted. And then Sophia, my wife, laughed too. Not a nervous chuckle, not a let's diffuse this giggle, a full-on laugh. "Oh, come on," she said between giggles, patting my arm like I was a toddler throwing a tantrum. "Don't be dramatic, babe." The laughter kept echoing. My fork hovered midair, the roast beef on it looking like the last shred of my dignity. I stared around the table at all of them, these people who had borrowed money from me, who'd called me to fix leaky roofs and cover unexpected bills, and here they were laughing at me like I was the family mascot. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was the kind of smile you practice in front of a mirror before a murder trial. "Good one," I said evenly. "Real family. Nice touch." Chloe, sensing blood in the water, doubled down. "Oh, don't take it personal. You're just more of a guest star, you know." "Guest star," I repeated. "Right. Must have missed that in the wedding vows." Sophia rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, it was just a joke." "Sure," I said, sipping my wine, "and heart attacks are just chest-high fives." Nobody laughed this time. Patricia shifted uncomfortably. Emma glanced at me with that "I'm sorry, my family's feral" look. That's when I decided I was done playing along. For years, I've been the punchline guy, the easygoing husband who'd eat the insults along with the mashed potatoes. But something inside me snapped, quietly, like a switch flipping. I set my fork down, folded my napkin neatly beside the plate, and pushed back my chair. Sophia blinked. "Where are you going? Dinner's not over." "Yeah," I said. "I think for me it is." Patricia frowned. "Oh, don't be silly. Chloe was just teasing." "Teasing?" I repeated. "Right. Is that what you call group humiliation now? Cute rebrand." Chloe scoffed. "You're seriously leaving? You can't take a joke?" "Oh, I can take jokes," I said. "I've been married into this family for 7 years. That's a joke endurance course." That one landed. Even Emma snorted. Robert's jaw tightened. "You're being disrespectful in my house." "Technically," I said, "the bank's house, but point taken." Sophia hissed. "Can we not do this right now?" "Sure," I said lightly, picking up my jacket. "We can schedule it between the reunion I'm not invited to and the next time your dad needs help fixing his credit." The silence that followed could have qualified as spiritual. You could hear the tick of Patricia's decorative wall clock. Every second, a tiny applause for my restraint. I smiled one last time, nodded at Emma, and headed for the door. Behind me, Chloe muttered, "Drama queen." I turned just enough to say, "And you're the family jester. Guess we both have roles." The look on her face worth every unpaid therapy session. When I stepped outside, the night air felt like freedom. Cold, honest, unfiltered. I stood on that porch for a second, breathing it in like oxygen after years underwater. My car was parked under the flickering streetlight, which felt poetic in a depressing kind of way. As I drove home, I didn't turn on the radio. Didn't need to. My thoughts were loud enough. I replayed the scene in my head like a movie I couldn't stop watching. Every laugh, every smirk, every time I brushed it off in the past because that's just how they are. But no, that's not how family acts. That's how parasites act with table manners. When I got home, I poured myself a whiskey, double neat, and sat in the dark. No TV, no music, just silence. The kind that lets your thoughts get louder until you can't ignore them anymore. I thought about the early years when I first met Sophia, when her family pretended to like me because I was new and shiny. Back then, I thought their teasing was just part of their charm. But charm fades when the jokes always cut in the same direction. What hurt wasn't Chloe's comment. It wasn't Robert's smug laugh or Patricia's fake shock. It was Sophia's reaction, the way she joined in like it was nothing, like my humiliation was background noise. That was the moment something inside me shifted permanently. I realized I'd been trying to earn a place in a club that never intended to give me a membership card. And for what? Approval? Validation? The illusion of unity? Screw that. I wasn't angry, not exactly. Anger burns fast. What I felt was colder, steadier. It's the kind of calm that makes people nervous because they can't predict what comes next. I looked at the clock, 10:17 p.m., and smiled to myself. Tonight, I stopped being the clown they laughed at. I stopped being the free emotional labor, the fixer, the guy who doesn't mind. Tonight, I became the audience. And audiences don't beg for inclusion. They watch. They take notes. And, eventually, when the show gets too bad, they walk out. I sipped my whiskey, leaned back, and whispered into the dark, "Show's over." But in truth, it wasn't. It was just intermission. You know what's funny? Not jokes. Jokes have punchlines, timing, a setup that at least pretends to make sense. What happened to me was more like a slow-burn prank. One so well coordinated that even I, the guy who planned half of it, didn't realize I was the butt until the curtain dropped. Here's the thing about family. They always say blood is thicker than water. But nobody tells you what to do when that blood starts acting like it's after your wallet. See, I was the guy who always showed up, the one who picked up the tab, who offered help before being asked. Sophia's family loved to call me reliable. Now I know that's code for the idiot who keeps paying. The family reunion was supposed to be my redemption arc. After years of being the background husband, the +1 who got laughed at for not knowing every inside joke, I thought maybe organizing something special would change that. Some twisted part of me believed that effort equaled acceptance. I'd even written "mend bridges" at the top of my to-do list that week, like I was managing a damn PR campaign instead of my in-laws' dysfunction. So I went all in. I searched for weeks, scrolling through rental listings like a travel agent with trust issues. Finally, I found it. A rustic lake cabin about 2 hours away, big enough for everyone, surrounded by pine trees and fake peace. It even had a hot tub because apparently rich people soak to forget their problems, and this family definitely needed to forget a few. I handled everything. Checked dates, called everyone individually, because Lord forbid these people reply in a group chat, and got everyone to confirm. Sophia said, "Wow, babe, that's so thoughtful." Her mom texted a thumbs-up emoji, which is basically her version of a love letter. Even Chloe managed to send a cool before disappearing into whatever vortex self-absorbed people live in. So I paid the deposit. Half up front, non-refundable. My card, my money. No complaints, no split-the-bill Venmo requests. Just me being the usual idiot who thought generosity could earn him basic respect. For a few days, it actually felt good. The group chat was lively. Emma was asking about groceries. Robert was rambling about bringing his famous grill set. And Patricia was debating which matching sweaters to buy for family photos. I was naive enough to smile at my phone like it was a newborn child. Then, one morning, the chat went silent, dead silent. At first, I thought maybe everyone was just busy, but hours turned into days. I sent a message. "Hey, just checking. Should I confirm final payment with the cabin host?" No response. Another day, another message. "Need to finalize headcount. Who's in?" Nothing. The typing bubble popped up once, probably an accidental butt text, and vanished like a ghost. It felt like being left on read by your own family. A week later, I came home to find Sophia humming in the kitchen, making pasta like life was normal. So I asked casually, "What's the deal with the reunion? Everyone ghosted me." She froze for half a second, just enough time for me to catch it, then smiled. "Oh, that. Yeah, I think they decided to restructure things a little." "Restructure?" I repeated, "like a corporate layoff?" She shrugged, sprinkling Parmesan like she was snowing guilt onto the counter. "They just wanted something smaller this year, less stress, you know." "Smaller," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "And by smaller, You mean what exactly? She didn't meet my eyes. Just family, immediate family. Immediate family, I said. So the same people who were all in the chat 2 weeks ago? Don't make it weird, she said quickly. It's not personal. Not personal, I repeated, laughing. Sure, because excluding the person who planned and paid for it definitely screams professional decision. She looked irritated now, which was rich considering I was the one being robbed. You're overreacting, she said. It's just one weekend. One weekend, I said, that I organized, funded, and moved my work schedule around for so your dad could bring his grill and your mom could pose with sweaters? Don't be dramatic. There it was again, my least favorite sentence in the English language. I swear if "don't be dramatic" had a face, I'd punch it. I walked over to the counter, poured myself a drink, and asked the question that had been burning a hole in my patience. So, what happened to the deposit? She hesitated, then gave that nervous laugh women give when they're about to lie but want to sound casual. Oh, Mom handled it. I think she just, transferred it to the new reservation. I froze. The new reservation. Yeah, same cabin, different booking, she said quickly, looking anywhere but at me. I think she just, took care of it. You mean she took my booking, I said slowly, and used my money? Sophia sighed. Babe, please, it's not that serious. Not that serious, I said, nodding. Right, you're right. It's not like I got publicly laughed at last week, and now I'm getting financially mugged by my in-laws. Totally fine. She crossed her arms. You're making this a big deal. Oh, it is a big deal, I said, because now I finally get the joke. She frowned. What joke? The one I didn't know I was in, I said. Apparently, I'm the family ATM, and I didn't even charge withdrawal fees. She rolled her eyes. You always twist things into drama. I stared at her, amazed. This woman could teach a master class in gaslighting. Sophia, I said carefully, do you realize how insane it is to use someone's money for a trip and not invite them? She opened her mouth, probably to say something about me being too sensitive, but I cut her off. No, seriously. If someone robbed a bank and then sent the teller a thank you card, that'd make more sense than this. She turned away, muttering, You wouldn't understand. Oh, trust me, I said. I'm starting to understand just fine. That's when it hit me. The clarity of betrayal mixed with the bitter comedy of it all. They played me like a cheap violin, and I'd handed them the bow. The family that laughed at me over dinner had graduated to stealing from me with a smile. For the rest of that evening, I stayed quiet, let her cook, let her pretend everything was fine. I ate dinner like a man attending his own roast. And the whole time, I kept thinking about how easily they all gone along with it. No hesitation, no guilt, just quiet coordination behind my back. The next day, I checked my credit card account. Sure enough, there it was. Cabin Lakeside Resort, $1,200 deposit. I stared at the charge, at the timestamp, at my own name attached to the joke. It was almost poetic, like karma had a sense of humor. That's when I realized something important. I wasn't family. I was the family funding. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a service. Need roof repairs? Call the son-in-law. Need tuition? Text him. Need a vacation deposit? Oh, he's good for it. For years, I justified it. They're just struggling. They'll pay me back eventually. It's what family does. No, family helps you. Parasites drain you. And parasites rarely say thank you. That night, I poured another drink and opened the group chat. I scrolled through every message, every thanks, every "you're the best," every fake little heart emoji. Then I took a screenshot of my payment receipt and sent it to the chat with one line. Hope you all have fun. You're welcome. Then I left the chat. It was petty, it was impulsive, and it felt fantastic. Sophia came into the living room 10 minutes later holding her phone like it was radioactive. What did you do? Set the record straight, I said. Her tone sharpened. You're embarrassing me. Good, I said. Now we're even. She glared. You're making a scene. I laughed. Honey, I'm not making a scene. I'm just turning on the lights. She stormed off to call her mom. I could hear muffled shouting from the other room. Patricia probably spinning it into another episode of the Martyr Chronicles. Meanwhile, I sat back, sipped my whiskey, and smiled. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't the one scrambling to make peace. I'd finally learned the rule no one tells you. When people treat your kindness like a weakness, stop being kind. You don't need to raise your voice, just raise your boundaries. By midnight, the guilt texts started rolling in. First from Emma, I'm so sorry, I didn't know they used your card. Then from Chloe, wow dude, dramatic much? And finally from Patricia herself, this is very immature behavior for someone who's supposed to be part of the family. I stared at that last message and actually laughed out loud. Part of the family, right? The part that pays, not the part that plays. I typed back one sentence. Didn't realize I was applying for membership. Then I turned my phone off. That night, lying in bed next to Sophia, who was still fuming, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the spiritual yoga mat kind. The kind that comes when you finally stop caring about being liked by people who don't respect you. Because here's the truth no one admits. When you stop trying to fit into other people's version of family, you finally start finding your own. And yeah, maybe they thought they'd excluded me from their precious little weekend, but the joke's on them. They didn't cut me out. They freed me. For days after the great family-only revelation, I woke up to the soothing sound of Sophia yelling at her phone like it owed her money, which, ironically, it kinda did. The morning started innocent enough. Coffee brewing, sun coming through the blinds, me trying to convince myself that adult life still had purpose. Then I heard the unmistakable tone of my wife's outrage echoing from the kitchen. "What do you mean transaction declined?" she snapped. It was the kind of tone usually reserved for traffic cops and Starbucks baristas who dare spell her name wrong. I leaned against the doorway, sipping my coffee, and asked, "Everything okay, sweetheart?" She turned, face pale, holding her phone like it had just betrayed her. "The emergency fund card isn't working!" She said it like she'd just discovered gravity stopped working too. Now, the emergency fund was my pride and joy, built over 3 years of cutting corners, late-night freelance gigs, and a whole lot of self-control. It wasn't glamorous money, it was grown-up money. The kind you build for broken transmissions, medical bills, or sudden life disasters. You know, real emergencies. Except in Sophia's dictionary, emergency apparently included designer handbags and last-minute family contributions. "How much were you trying to take out?" I asked, already suspecting the answer would raise my blood pressure. $2,400, she said without flinching, like that was the most normal number in the world. "Mom's organizing the reunion supplies, and she needed a little help with the rental van and groceries." 6:30 p.m. Ding dong. Now, under normal circumstances, the sound of a doorbell means pizza, a delivery, or Jehovah's Witnesses with perfect timing. But when your ex-fiancé recently left you for her boss and then got locked out of your streaming accounts, it usually means something worse. I looked at the doorbell camera feed on my phone, and there she was, Isabella, standing on my porch like a Hallmark movie reject. Waterproof mascara had clearly failed the quality assurance test, and she was holding 2 suitcases and the kind of regret that could fuel an entire therapy convention. I leaned back on the couch, sipped my beer, and whispered, "Well, well, if it isn't the CEO of Poor Decisions Incorporated." For a solid minute, I debated pretending I wasn't home. But curiosity won, because if karma ever hand-delivers entertainment to your doorstep, you open the curtain and enjoy the show.
I walked to the door but kept the chain lock on because I wasn't about to get ambushed by nostalgia or guilt or, worse, her perfume.
"Matthew kicked me out," she sobbed. Her voice cracked like a sad violin played by an amateur. "He said he needs time to process everything." "Already?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "Wow, the man moves fast. I guess promotions at that company have a probation period, too." Her eyes darted around, embarrassed, angry, desperate. All the stages of regret in under 10 seconds. "It's complicated," she sniffled. He said he's confused." "He's married, Isabella." "I didn't know until yesterday." "He's trying to save his own ass." "Ugh," I said, nodding like a therapist who's just diagnosed stupidity. "So what you're saying is he needs time to explain to his wife why he suddenly has a pregnant intern living in his guest room." She flinched. "That's not fair." "Neither is life, Isabella, but it's honest." Her face scrunched up like she was about to unleash a guilt trip, but I was already 5 steps ahead. "You can't just cut me off like this," she said, clutching her belly for dramatic effect, like she thought the pregnancy card was the ultimate cheat code. I folded my arms. "You moved in with your boss, pregnant with his baby, and told me about it during business hours. I'm just respecting your new LinkedIn life choice. You chose corporate housing, remember?" "Just for tonight," she pleaded. "Please, Daniel, I have nowhere else to go." I leaned slightly forward, keeping the chain tight. "Sorry, occupancy full. Try the HR department. Maybe they can do an employee wellness check." Her expression twisted into disbelief. "You're heartless." "No," I said. "I just learned boundaries." I closed the door gently, letting the chain rattle for emphasis. She banged on it, shouting my name like I was some kind of rom-com hero about to chase her through the rain. But this wasn't a Nicholas Sparks movie. This was real life, and my popcorn was getting cold. I turned up the volume on my TV. The sound of the Office theme song drowned out her crying. Honestly, it was beautiful, like a meditation app that finally worked. She eventually stopped knocking. The camera showed her sitting on the porch steps, mascara streaked, and scrolling her phone. Probably texting every person in her contacts list for a backup couch. I imagine the message. Need a place to stay. Temporarily homeless, but emotionally available. About an hour later, she left. The headlights of an Uber lit up the driveway, and she dragged her suitcases away, head low. The universe gave me a parting gift. The soft thud of her heel breaking as she stumbled onto the curb. I raised my beer. Cheers to gravity and karma. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter, like someone had vacuumed the emotional dust out of my life. I brewed coffee, opened the blinds, and there it was again. Silence, the kind that felt earned. But peace, my friend, never lasts long when drama knows your address. Around 10 a.m., my phone buzzed. New text, unknown number. I didn't even have to open it to know. "Please, I made a mistake. Matthew lied about everything. I can't afford this motel." There it was, the Desperation Trilogy. I screenshotted them all and put them in a folder titled Future Comedy Material. Maybe one day I'd read them during my best man speech at someone else's wedding, obviously. By noon, my phone was vibrating like a blender. She was borrowing phones now. Friends, co-workers, probably her sister. The messages ranged from manipulative to pathetic. Then her sister Ava called my work line. My work line! The audacity. I answered, voice professional. "Daniel Bennett speaking." "Don't act formal with me," she snapped. "Isabella told me everything. You're heartless. She's pregnant and homeless." I leaned back in my chair. "Homeless? She moved out voluntarily. That's called remote work." "You're unbelievable. She's carrying a child." "Yeah, and she's also carrying the consequences of her decisions. Big difference." Click. End of conversation. 5 minutes later, her mom called.
because of course she did. "Daniel, how could you throw a pregnant woman out on the street?" I sighed. "Carol, she threw herself out. I just changed the locks." "You should be ashamed of yourself," she shouted. Trust me, I was, for about 5 years. Then she moved in with her boss and cured me. She gasped so dramatically I thought she might pass out. I ended the call before she started quoting scripture.
By lunchtime, my coworkers were whispering. You can always tell when gossip starts circulating. The break room goes quiet when you walk in, and people suddenly discover the fascinating art of stirring coffee in silence. I heard snippets. Heartless, sociopath, emotional detachment. I smiled. People say those things like they're insults, but I call it mental cybersecurity. You learn to firewall your feelings after enough malware disguised as love tries to log in. That evening, I met up with Ethan for drinks. He'd been dying to hear the sequel. "So let me get this straight," he said between sips. "She cheated, got pregnant, moved in with her boss, got kicked out, and now she's trying to move back in with you?" "Correct," I said, nodding. "Apparently my house is now her backup server." He whistled. "Damn, that's bold. I wouldn't even have the confidence to ask my ex for Wi-Fi, let alone housing. She's got G, I'll give her that." He leaned in. "You going to cave?" I gave him a look that could have frozen lava. "Ethan, I changed the locks. I revoked her Prime account. I'm this close to calling NASA to remove her from the planet." He laughed so hard the bartender looked over. "You're evil, bro." "Evil? No, just organized." When I got home that night, I checked my doorbell camera again out of habit. No crying ex, no emotional blackmail, just peace. Beautiful, uneventful peace. I poured a drink, sat back, and thought about how quickly tables can turn. 1 week ago, she was choosing champagne flutes for our wedding registry. Now she was probably Googling cheap extended stay motel with breakfast. The poetic symmetry almost made me emotional. Almost. I'll be honest, though, there was a weird satisfaction in knowing I didn't break down, didn't beg, didn't turn into the cliché guy sending 3 a.m. I miss you texts. I handled it with grace and sarcasm, the two greatest weapons of the emotionally evolved. Still, there's something wild about how fast a relationship can implode. You think you know someone, and then one day they're standing on your porch crying, and you realize the person you loved might have just been a really convincing improv actor. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, same one I'd stared at during the call. Only now it wasn't spinning regret, it was circulating relief. I thought about what she'd said on the phone that day. "You're not going to fight for me?" And I laughed because that's what she never understood. I don't fight for people who walk themselves out of my life. I'm not a warrior. I'm a man with decent Wi-Fi and boundaries. By midnight, I was out cold, sleeping deeper than I had in months. No overthinking, no checking my phone, no wondering if I'd done enough. I'd done plenty. The universe was finally on Do Not Disturb. And as for Isabella, she was probably discovering that the grass isn't greener. It's just more expensive and comes with a boss named Matthew. The next morning, I woke up refreshed, made breakfast, and thought if peace had a flavor, it would taste like bacon and justice. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's locking the door, changing the Wi-Fi password, and letting the crying intern learn what happens when you underestimate the quiet guy who keeps receipts. The next morning started like most of my post-breakup mornings. Coffee strong enough to strip paint, quiet apartment, and a vague sense that peace was finally legal again. That was until my phone started buzzing like it had a personal vendetta. I thought maybe my Amazon delivery was early, or my boss was pretending to care about productivity again. But no, it was messages, lots of them, random numbers, unfamiliar area codes. Clearly, Isabella was borrowing phones like a college freshman borrows Wi-Fi. I opened one text. "Please, I made a mistake." Then another. "Matthew lied about everything." A third one sealed it. "I can't afford this motel, I swear." You could almost smell the desperation through the screen.
I stared at the texts like a scientist studying a new species of audacity. No replies, of course. I took screenshots, neatly labeled, and saved in a folder titled Future Comedy Material. I had plans for these. Maybe I'd frame them. Maybe I'd read them aloud at my next poker night. Gentlemen, tonight's entertainment. Exhibit A, The Chronicles of a Clueless Fiancé. By 10 a.m., she'd escalated to voice calls. Unknown numbers again. I didn't answer. I wasn't about to get sucked into some emotional TED talk about forgiveness. But just when I thought she'd finally run out of prepaid phone minutes, my work phone rang. My work phone. I picked it up, and before I could even say hello, I heard the voice, her sister Ava, sounding like she'd been waiting her whole life for this confrontation. "You're heartless," she snapped. "Isabella's pregnant and homeless." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Homeless," I repeated, feigning shock. "I thought she moved out voluntarily. Isn't that called remote work now?" There was a stunned silence. "You think this is funny?" she hissed. "No," I said calmly. "I think it's called consequences." Click. End of call. I sat there grinning like a man who just won an argument with gravity. Not 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. Isabella's mom. Of course, because every bad sitcom needs a meddling mother-in-law figure. "Daniel, how could you?" she began, her voice trembling with righteous fury. "You threw a pregnant woman into the streets!" I sighed dramatically, swirling my coffee like a villain in a soap opera. "Carol," I said, "let's be accurate. She threw herself into the streets. I just changed the locks." "She made a mistake!" she cried. "We all do, right?" I said. "But some of us don't call our exes about it after." She gasped so loudly I thought she'd inhaled her pearls. I ended the call before she started quoting Bible verses about mercy. I'm not saying I'm allergic to guilt trips, but I'd rather sit in rush hour traffic listening to an MLM pitch. By lunch, I could tell my coworkers knew something was up. The break room felt quieter, the kind of quiet where everyone's pretending not to eavesdrop. I grabbed my sandwich, nodded at a few people, and overheard the whisper. "He's so calm. It's creepy." Another voice whispered, "I heard she's pregnant and he kicked her out." I wanted to turn around and say, "Correction, she left me for her boss and I revoked her Hulu." But I figured that might not go over well during an HR audit. Let them talk. I call it mental cybersecurity. Protecting your peace like a firewall protects your data. You can't hack a man who's emotionally encrypted. That evening, my friend Ethan called. "Dude," he said, "your ex's sister just tagged you in a Facebook rant." I rolled my eyes. "Oh God, what's the headline?" "It's a long one," he said, laughing. "Something like, 'Heartless fiancé abandons pregnant woman after cheating boss disappears.' Bro, the comments section is a war zone." I opened Facebook. Sure enough, there it was. A dramatic post, complete with a crying emoji and a blurry photo of Isabella looking like a contestant on the Bachelor Pity Edition. People were commenting things like, "Men are trash," and "Prayers for her and the baby." I almost replied, "Prayers accepted for my Wi-Fi password she lost." Instead, I just screenshotted it and added it to my collection. Exhibit B. Around 7 p.m., I got another call, this time from an unknown local number. I didn't answer. It went to voicemail. A few minutes later, the notification popped up. I pressed play, and Isabella's voice filled the room. "Daniel," she began, trying to sound calm, but landing somewhere between desperate and dramatic. "I know you're mad, but please, I just need help. I don't have anyone else to call." I paused it halfway through to grab popcorn. When she said, "You were always so kind," I muttered, "Yeah, and you were always so employed. What changed?" Then she added, "I just need you to remember the man you were when you proposed." I almost laughed out loud.
The man I was, I said to my TV, wasn't paying for a boss's baby shower, sweetheart. By 8 p.m., my group chat was lighting up. Ethan, my buddy Liam, and even my cousin were sending screenshots of Isabella's family drama spreading online. "Bro, she's really running a PR campaign," Liam texted. "You're the villain in her story now." I typed back, "Good. Every good story needs one." Ethan replied with a gif of Thanos snapping his fingers. Accurate. Later that night, I sat outside on my porch, drinking, staring at the quiet street. The neighborhood cat strolled across my driveway like it owned the place, which, frankly, it probably did. I took a long sip and said to no one, "You'd think cheating would come with a silence clause." Because here's the thing, people love to rewrite history, especially the ones who set it on fire. They always try to make you the arsonist. And the more you stay calm, the crazier they look. I was counting on that. The next day, my phone rang again. Work number? Same tone of doom. "Mr. Bennett," a voice asked, "this is HR. Do you have a minute?" Oh, fantastic. My favorite words. Turns out Isabella had emailed my company. Apparently, she was claiming emotional abuse and financial abandonment. The HR rep sounded cautious, like she was handling uranium. "We just want to ensure everything is okay." I smiled through the phone. "Everything's great. My only crime is canceling a joint Netflix account." There was a pause. "Oh," she said, caught off guard. We just needed to check." "Totally understand," I said. "Would you like me to forward screenshots of her texts for context?" "No, that won't be necessary." Call ended. HR knew nonsense when they heard it. I imagine her typing, "Case closed, dramatic X" in the report. That evening, Ethan came over with pizza and a six-pack. "You're handling this too well," he said. "Most guys would have set something on fire by now." I shrugged. "Oh, don't worry, I'm setting things on fire, just not the legal kind." We clinked bottles, and he said, "You think she's done?" I laughed. She's only on episode 2 of her redemption arc. Sure enough, right as he left, my phone buzzed again. Another text, another unknown number. "Dan, please just talk to me. Matthew's ghosting me. I don't even know what to do." I typed out a reply, stared at it, then deleted it. The reply said, "You could start by talking to HR. Yours, not mine." Instead, I turned off my phone, leaned back, and let out a deep exhale. There's something oddly satisfying about not replying. It's like resisting the urge to scratch a mosquito bite. Uncomfortable at first, but deeply rewarding when you realize the itch can't control you. I went to bed that night thinking about how I'd spent years trying to be her hero, her support system, her backup plan. And now I was just a chapter in her cautionary tale. But guess what? I was fine with that. Because while she was playing the victim on Facebook, I was living rent-free in her head, and she wasn't in mine anymore. The next morning, I woke up to one final masterpiece, a group text. I don't know how she did it, but she managed to create a chat that included me, her sister, her mom, and a couple of mutual friends. The message said, "Can we all be adults and talk this out?" I nearly spit out my coffee. Talk this out like we were a college project team? No, thank you. I hit leave conversation faster than a cat dodging a bath. Seconds later, Ava texted me separately. "You're so immature." I smiled and replied, "No, I'm just unavailable for bad management." Then I blocked her. And just like that, my morning was peaceful again. I looked around my apartment, the one I now fully owned emotionally and physically, and realized something. I'd finally reached the point where her chaos was nothing more than background noise. The calls, the messages, the online pity campaign, none of it mattered. Because at the end of the day, when you stop feeding drama, it starves itself. By 5 p.m., I poured myself a drink, sank into my couch, and raised a silent toast to the calm. The calls had stopped, the group texts had failed.
Even the internet had moved on. And somewhere out there, Isabella was probably learning the hardest lesson of all, that some bridges don't burn because someone set them on fire. They just collapse under the weight of their own lies. 2 days after the group text fiasco, I was in the middle of what normal people call moving on, which for me meant reorganizing my spice rack and pretending that alphabetizing paprika somehow counted as self-care. The phone buzzed. It was Ethan. When a friend calls at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, it's either bad news or a multi-level marketing pitch. "Bro," he said, sounding like a man who just discovered buried treasure. "You sitting down?" "I'm in my kitchen, not the stock market. What's up?" He paused for dramatic effect. "Matthew's married." I blinked. "Come again?" "Married. Wife, house in the suburbs, 2 kids, golden retriever, the whole Pinterest board." For a solid 5 seconds, I said nothing. Then I laughed. That slow, uncontrollable laugh that starts in your chest and ends in your soul. "You're telling me the man who convinced my fiancé to run off and start a family already had one?" "Yup," Ethan said. "Apparently his wife found out about Isabella. It's all over the office group chat. HR's having a meltdown." I nearly spilled my coffee. Oh, this is better than Netflix. Let me paint the picture. Matthew, the guy with the no-sock loafers and the leadership guru haircut, had been playing double life bingo. Wife at home, mistress in middle management, baby on the way, and company assets funding both lifestyles. He really thought he was invincible. Newsflash, Karma has a LinkedIn account too. I opened my laptop because obviously I had to confirm this masterpiece myself. A quick scroll through LinkedIn and boom, Matthew's profile had gone from dynamic team leader passionate about growth to currently seeking new opportunities. Translation: fired. His photo was gone, banner removed, endorsements vanished like witnesses in a mob movie. Corporate witness protection. Ethan was still talking, feeding me details like a gossip podcast host. Apparently, his wife showed up at the office yesterday. Full-blown soap opera scene. She found out through his credit card statements. There were hotel charges, baby store purchases, and an Amazon order for prenatal vitamins. I whistled. Damn, caught by capitalism. "Exactly," he said, and get this, she confronted him during the staff meeting. I almost fell out of my chair. In the meeting? Yup, she walked in with the receipts, literally in a manila folder, said, "If you can explain this, I'll sit down." He couldn't. HR escorted him out 5 minutes later. I leaned back, savoring every syllable. So Isabella left me for a man who left his wife for her, only for him to get left by his wife and his job in the same hour. "That's the chain of command, my friend," Ethan said. "Natural selection." After we hung up, I just sat there in the quiet, grinning at the irony. Life has a wicked sense of humor when you stop interrupting it. I imagined Isabella in a cheap motel somewhere, scrolling through her phone, realizing the man she risked everything for couldn't even risk a divorce. Somewhere out there, she was learning that promotion came with no benefits, no dental, and definitely no 401k. By noon, the gossip had made its way to my phone through mutual friends. "Bro, you hear about Matthew? Did you know Isabella's ex works there too? This is wild." I just replied with the same 2 words. Karma delivers. I decided to treat myself, drove to my favorite diner, ordered a bacon cheeseburger with extra fries, and toasted to poetic justice with a root beer float. The waitress, Sandy, looked at me and said, "You look like a man who just got good news." I smiled. Let's just say the universe finally clocked in for overtime. She winked. "Well, cheers to that, hun."
While I ate, I scrolled through my phone again, half expecting another wave of frantic texts from Isabella. Sure enough, there it was, a new number. "Daniel, please call me. Everything's falling apart." I stared at it, dipped a fry in ketchup, and whispered, "Everything already fell apart, sweetheart. You just showed up late to the collapse." I didn't reply. Some lessons you let life teach for you. By the time I got home, the group chat was exploding again. Liam had sent screenshots from an anonymous Reddit post. Someone claiming to be an employee at Matthew's company had written a full exposé. Our department head got caught cheating with his assistant. Wife found out. HR and chaos. And the intern from hell is crying in the parking lot. The comments were ruthless. "This sounds like an HR nightmare. Girl, get a lawyer." Plot twist, she's pregnant. One commenter wrote, "Bet the fiancé she left is living his best life." I couldn't resist. I made an account and upvoted it. That evening, Ethan came over again with a six-pack, because apparently our friendship now ran on schadenfreude and beer. "So, what's the next move?" he asked. "Move?" I said. "There is no move. The game's already over. I won without playing." He laughed. "You're handling this like a Bond villain." "No," I said. "More like a retired superhero who doesn't come out of retirement unless it's tax deductible." We sat there on the balcony watching the sunset, trading jokes about Karma's impeccable timing. Ethan said, "You think she'll try to come back again?" I shrugged. "Probably, but if she does, she'll find out my heart's under new management." "Damn," he said. "You rehearsed that line, didn't you?" "Since the jewelry refund cleared." Later that night, I was brushing my teeth when I heard the faint ping of another message. I glanced at the phone, another unknown number. I sighed, unlocked it, and read, "Matthew won't talk to me. His wife called me a home-wrecking gold digger. I don't know what to do." I wiped my mouth, stared at the screen, and said out loud, "You could start by taking accountability, but that's probably not in your skill set." Then I deleted it. Not blocked, deleted. Blocking would have been an acknowledgement. Deleting was indifference. The next day, I woke up feeling like I'd slept through a thunderstorm and woken up in clear weather. It's funny how fast peace returns when you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. At work, HR was gossip-proofing like crazy. Official memos about professional boundaries and office relationships. My boss Greg called me into his office. "Hey man," he said, closing the door. "I just wanted to check in. I heard about, I smiled. "You mean the corporate soap opera starring my ex and her boss?" He chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, that. You holding up okay?" "Never better," I said. "Turns out betrayal is great for productivity. I finished 3 reports before 10 a.m. Greg nodded. "Good attitude. For what it's worth, everyone's on your side." "Appreciate it," I said. "Tell them I accept sympathy in the form of paid leave." He laughed. "Get back to work, Bennett." By the end of the day, I had a dozen unread texts, most of them from unknown numbers that I assumed were Isabella's new burner phones. The final one made me snort aloud. "I made a mistake leaving you. Matthew ruined everything. I just wish you'd talk to me." I typed a reply just to get it out of my system. "Talk to you about what? The weather? The thunderstorm of your own making?" Then I deleted it again. Silence was the only language I wanted to speak. That night, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and scrolled through old photos one last time. Not to reminisce, just to delete. Each swipe was like clearing browser history on a bad life decision. Our vacation in Miami, gone. Her birthday dinner, gone. The selfie we took outside the jewelry store, double gone. By the end, my gallery looked like a man who'd never heard of Isabella in his life. That's when I realized I didn't hate her. Hate takes energy. I was just done, emotionally logged out. Sometime around midnight, Ethan texted me again. "Just saw a post. Matthew's wife filed for divorce and is suing him for misuse of company funds." I grinned. So the sequel's better than the original. "Dude," he said, "you need to write a book about this."
Already living it, I replied. Working title, The Promotion She Didn't Deserve. Before bed, I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere across town, Isabella was probably crying in a motel room, realizing her boss wasn't her happily ever after, but her exit interview from Common Sense. And for the first time since that infamous phone call, I felt completely free. Not angry, not bitter, just untethered. It's weird. The moment you stop wanting closure, you realize it's not something they give you. It's something you give yourself when you stop replaying the scene. She'd made her choices, and life was cashing those checks with interest. I finished my drink, raised the glass to the window, and said softly to Matthew's wife, "May her lawyer be ruthless." Then I laughed, turned off the lights, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the blinds, the smell of fresh coffee, and the distinct feeling that the worst part of my life had quietly packed up and moved out. My phone buzzed one more time, a final text from Isabella. "I just wish things could go back to how they were." I stared at it, smiled, and typed one last message before deleting her number for good. They did. For me. A week after the whole Matthew's married revelation, I was back to what I now called post-chaos normal. My mornings were quiet again, my coffee maker didn't sound like it was competing with someone's hairdryer, and my living room didn't smell like Sephora exploded. Life was finally stable, which, of course, meant the universe was about to test that. It happened on a Tuesday, because bad news never respects weekends. I got to work early, ready to impress my boss by existing, when I saw a plain white envelope sitting on my desk. No postage, just my name written in handwriting that looked like cursive met caffeine withdrawal. I flipped it over, and there it was, certified mail. Now, I don't know if you've ever received a certified letter at work, but it's basically the adult version of "we need to talk." Nothing good ever comes in one. Either you're being sued, audited, or, in my case, haunted by your ex with access to a post office. I tore it open, expecting divorce papers I didn't need, or maybe a bill for emotional damages. Instead, it was 3 handwritten pages, soap opera penmanship, hearts over the eyes, dramatic loops on the Ys. I didn't even need to read the signature. I could smell the regret through the ink. "Daniel," it began, "I never meant for things to happen this way. You abandoned me in my time of need." That line almost made me spit out my coffee. I abandoned her? Ma'am, you moved out with a duffel bag and a boss who already had a wife. I kept reading, because sometimes stupidity deserves an audience. "Please pay for my hotel until I get back on my feet. We should go to couples therapy to heal this betrayal." This betrayal, not her betrayal, mine. I had to reread that part just to make sure my brain wasn't experiencing lag. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or frame the letter as a piece of performance art. It was like reading a script written by someone who'd slept through reality. I walked straight to the break room where my friend Liam, our office's resident lawyer/sarcasm supplier, was pouring coffee. I slid the letter toward him like it was evidence in a criminal trial. "Read this," I said. He started reading. His face changed expressions faster than a malfunctioning emoji keyboard. By paragraph 2, he was wheezing. "Oh my God," he said between laughs. "If I die laughing, you can sue her for emotional distress." "Is this not insanity?" I asked. Liam held up a hand, still chuckling. "This is gold, man. You don't respond to this. You archive it. One day Netflix will call, and you'll need this for the writer's room." We kept the letter. I folded it neatly, put it in a folder labeled Evidence for the Biopic, and slipped it into my desk drawer. Because, honestly, who knows? Maybe one day I'll sell the movie rights. The promotion she didn't expect, based on poor life choices. The rest of the day went by uneventfully, except for the fact that I couldn't stop thinking about how someone could twist reality so hard. I mean, she really believed I owed her something, as if heartbreak came with alimony. Around 6 p.m., I got home, dropped my keys on the counter, and saw another letter slipped under my door. Not certified this time, but the handwriting was the same. Round 2, I muttered, tearing it open. Daniel, it began again. Apparently, introspection wasn't her strong suit. I forgive you for how you treated me. Forgive me? This woman had the nerve to turn my peace into a confessional. I know you acted out of pain. I still believe we're meant to be. God has a plan for us. I stared at the paper. God might have a plan, but I was pretty sure it didn't involve me Venmoing her hotel bill. Halfway through, she mentioned how lonely she was and how this baby deserves a father figure with integrity. That one almost made me snort my drink. Integrity, lady? You cheated with your married boss. I'm not the integrity fairy. I took a photo of the letter and sent it to Liam and Ethan with one caption: the sequel no one asked for. Ethan replied, "Tell her to send it by FedEx next time so it feels more official." Liam sent back, "Frame it. Title it Certified Delusion." By the next day, it wasn't just letters. It was voicemails, long ones, emotional ones. Some started with crying, some ended with accusations. One of them went, "Dan, I saw your car at the diner. Were you with someone?" I was with a cheeseburger, but I didn't think that counted as infidelity. She left 7 messages in 2 days, each progressively more dramatic than the last. I started rating them like podcasts. Episode 1, The Lonely Hotel. 3 stars, solid emotional delivery, lacks self-awareness. Episode 2, The Father of Integrity. 2 stars, repetitive plot. Episode 3, The Universe is Testing Me. 1 star, weak ending, too much crying. By the time episode 7 dropped, I was considering charging a subscription fee. At lunch on Thursday, Liam and I were at our favorite spot downtown, the kind of place that serves burgers big enough to solve emotional problems. I told him about the voicemails, and he shook his head. "You know what this is," he said. "Classic deflection. She's rewriting the narrative because she can't handle being the villain." "Then she should have picked a different genre," I said. "I'm not signing up for a redemption arc." He laughed. "Man, you should start a podcast, Letters from My Ex, A Cautionary Tale." Season 1, sponsored by Common Sense, I said, which she clearly ran out of. When I got home that night, there was a 3rd letter waiting. No envelope this time, just folded and tucked into my mailbox like a teenage breakup note. I opened it, bracing myself. "Daniel, I saw your friend Ethan's post. Are you mocking me online?" I laughed so hard I almost dropped it. Ethan had posted a meme earlier that said, "When your ex leaves you for her boss but ends up jobless and homeless, that's not heartbreak, that's a plot twist." I guess subtlety wasn't our strong suit. The letter went on for 2 pages about public humiliation and privacy violations. Then it ended with, "If you have any decency left, help me get through this pregnancy." I folded it neatly and muttered, "I have decency, just not amnesia." The next morning, I stopped by the post office on my way to work. The clerk looked bored, probably thinking I was mailing bills or tax forms. Nope. I handed him a plain envelope addressed to Isabella's motel. Inside, one note: "Return to sender. Sincerely, Common Sense." For the rest of the week, I didn't hear from her. It was weird, like the calm after a hurricane, where you're not sure if it's really over or if the storm's just reloading. But on Saturday morning, another certified letter showed up. Apparently, she'd found a bulk discount on emotional postage. This one was shorter and even more dramatic. "I'm leaving town," she wrote. "You'll never hear from me again. You win." I smiled, sipped my coffee, and whispered, "Finally, a victory speech." But, of course, the last line killed the vibe. "Unless you want to talk before I go." Of course she had to add that. Drama never exits quietly. It always leaves the door cracked open. I didn't respond. Didn't call, didn't text. I just went about my weekend like a man who'd passed a difficult exam. I even went grocery shopping, something I'd avoided because that store was full of Isabella's ghosts.
But this time, it was different. No sadness, no nostalgia, just me buying steak, beer, and freedom. Sunday afternoon, Ethan and Liam came over to watch the game. Ethan spotted the stack of letters on my counter and said, "Damn, bro, she's building a paper trail." "Yeah," I said, "a trail straight to irrelevance." Liam picked one up, reading aloud dramatically. "We should go to therapy to heal this betrayal." He laughed. "Man, if this were a movie, the audience would boo her." "Exactly," I said. "This isn't therapy. It's public relations." Ethan cracked open a beer. "So, what are you going to do with all of them?" "Keep them," I said. "Proof that I survived the human equivalent of a pop-up ad." They both laughed, and for a moment, the air in my apartment felt lighter than it had in months. I realized that while she was writing chapters of regret, I was writing a new story, one with peace, beer, and people who actually understood boundaries. When they left that night, I stood by my window, watching the streetlights flicker against the quiet neighborhood. Somewhere out there, Isabella was still writing letters, still spinning her version of events. But it didn't matter, because I wasn't her audience anymore. I raised my glass one last time and said softly, "Certified received, drama returned to sender." And with that, I finally officially closed the chapter. Wednesday evening began innocently enough. I just finished microwaving leftover Chinese food that had definitely seen better days, and was halfway through an episode of Better Call Saul when my doorbell rang. At first, I assumed it was a delivery. Maybe Ethan had finally ordered that dumb congratulations on your emotional maturity cake he'd been threatening to send me. But when I glanced at the doorbell camera, the universe rewarded me with an encore performance from my favorite recurring sitcom characters, Isabella's parents, Richard and Carol, aka the ghosts of poor decisions past. I froze, chopsticks midair. They looked exactly how I remembered. Richard in his ever-present golf sweater, even though it was 75 degrees, and Carol wearing pearls big enough to pick up satellite signals. The two of them stood on my porch like Jehovah's Witnesses for guilt, I muttered. Oh God, they've come to reclaim the warranty on their defective daughter. I opened the door a cautious 3 inches, enough to establish dominance, but not enough for them to wedge in emotionally. Richard smiled that awkward, trying to be reasonable smile. "Daniel, can we come in for a moment?" I gave him the look of a man evaluating whether forgiveness was tax deductible. "Depends. Is this a social call or an intervention?" Carol answered for him, voice trembling like she'd practiced this monologue in the car. "Daniel, she's pregnant. She's scared. She has nowhere to go." I sighed theatrically. "Carol, she's pregnant and employed. Scared? Maybe. Homeless? No, that's a personal budget issue." Richard stepped forward, hands raised like a hostage negotiator. "Son, we're not here to start a fight. We just think you could show a little compassion." "Compassion?" I repeated, leaning on the doorframe. "Richard, your daughter left me for her married boss and now wants me to fund her maternity leave. Compassion's in short supply this fiscal year." Carol gasped like I just kicked a puppy. "How dare you speak about the mother of your unborn child like that?" I blinked. Whoa, let's stop right there. Broadway, that's not my unborn child. That's Matthew's unpaid internship. Her eyes went wide, and I swear if indignation were a sport, she'd have broken a record. "You men are all the same," she hissed. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "please don't lump me in with your son-in-law's boss's boyfriend. I'm just trying to watch Netflix." Richard sighed. "Look, Daniel, we know mistakes were made." "Plural, yes," I interrupted, "and one of them still wearing waterproof mascara somewhere in a motel." Carol stomped her heel. "You think this is funny?" "Honestly," I said, scratching my chin, "a little. Tragic comedy, really. Somewhere between Maury and Shark Tank." She turned to her husband, whispering, "He's heartless." Richard, to his credit, still tried diplomacy. "Daniel, maybe you two could talk it out. You had something good once." "Richard, the only thing we had in common was a Wi-Fi plan and matching toothbrushes, both of which are canceled." Carol crossed her arms. "You'll regret this coldness one day." I smiled politely. Not as much as Isabella regrets leaving me for a guy with a LinkedIn bio that starts with visionary. 30 minutes. That's how long they stayed. 30 full minutes of emotional spam. Pleading, scolding, guilt-tripping, looping back around to pleading again. I swear Carol changed tactics like a telemarketer on commission. At one point, she even tried religion. "What would Jesus do?" she demanded. "Probably not co-sign an Audi for adultery," I said. That one earned me a gasp loud enough to set off nearby car alarms. Richard tugged her arm. "Let's go, honey. He's not ready." "He's not buying what we're selling." When they finally retreated down the porch steps, I leaned against the doorway and raised my glass of water in salute. "Cheers to boundaries," I said to the security camera. The camera blinked back, silently judging me, but I felt like I just defended the Alamo of personal peace. I went back inside, sat down, and realized my Chinese food was cold. Didn't even matter. The satisfaction was a meal in itself. About 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Text from Ethan. "Dude, saw a Facebook post from Isabella's mom. You've officially been promoted to devil incarnate." I opened the link. Sure enough, Carol had written a post that read like a Lifetime movie synopsis. "My daughter's ex has turned his back on her in her time of need. Pregnant, abandoned, yet still strong." The comment section was pure chaos. "Men these days have no hearts. Prayers for Isabella. Stay strong, mama." I almost replied with, "Stay strong, just not in my living room." Instead, I screenshotted it for my growing digital scrapbook of delusion. Thursday morning at work, Liam slid a coffee across my desk. "Heard the in-laws made landfall." "Yep," I said. "They tried diplomacy. I countered with sarcasm. Successful mission complete. No casualties, except maybe their faith in humanity." He laughed. "You realize you're in the eye of a drama hurricane, right?" "Yeah," I said, sipping the coffee, "but I built my house out of indifference." By noon, my phone started buzzing again. Not Isabella this time, but mutual friends. Apparently, the parental pity tour had gone mobile. Carol was calling anyone who'd ever liked one of our engagement photos. "She's telling people you locked a pregnant woman out of your house?" Liam said, scrolling through his phone. I shrugged. "Technically true. I locked a pregnant cheater out of my house. Context matters." He smirked. "You ever think about going public? Set the record straight?" "No need," I said. "The truth's like daylight. It shows up eventually." That night, though, I couldn't help imagining the dinner conversation at Casa Thompson. Carol stirring her soup with righteous fury. Richard nodding like a hostage. Isabella dabbing fake tears while scrolling through baby name apps for sympathy clicks. I could practically hear it. "Mom, he won't even answer my calls." "Sweetheart, men are weak." "Dad, say something." Richard, "Pass the salt." The visual made me chuckle mid-beer. Friday evening, I came home from work to find a small box on my porch. No return address. For a moment, I thought, please tell me she didn't send me a baby announcement already. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a framed photo of Isabella and me at our engagement shoot, smiling like two idiots who believed in happily ever after. The note taped to the back read, "Don't forget what you had." I stared at it for a good 10 seconds before tossing it straight into the recycling bin. "Already recycled," I said out loud. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail from Richard. "Daniel, I just want to say, Carol's a little emotional. We just want peace. Maybe when the baby's born, you'll feel differently." I hit replay just to make sure I'd heard that right. When the baby's born, you'll feel differently. That was rich. The only thing I'd feel differently about when that baby arrived was gratitude that diapers weren't my financial problem. Saturday morning, I decided to drive out to the farmer's market, cleanse the aura, buy overpriced honey, pretend I was thriving. While browsing tomatoes, I ran into someone who'd gone to church with Carol. She gave me the pity look. "We're all praying for Isabella," she said gently. "She's been through so much." I smiled. "Me too," I said. "Every night I pray she learns about accountability before her next relationship." The woman blinked, unsure whether I was serious, and walked away muttering something about bitterness. By Sunday, the phone calls finally stopped. Maybe they'd run out of emotional gas. Or maybe Richard had realized the futility of reasoning with the man who answered guilt trips with punchlines. I spent the afternoon cleaning, blasting music, and feeling a strange mix of peace and absurd amusement. That's when I saw it. One last text from Carol, of course. "I hope you can live with yourself." I typed back, "Oh, I sleep great. Thanks for checking." Then I hit send, blocked her number, and felt like I'd just deleted malware from my life. That evening, Ethan swung by with 2 beers and his usual smirk. "So, the in-laws paid a visit, huh?" "Yup, full parade. Trumpets, banners, emotional guilt confetti." "How'd you handle it?" "Like a pro," I said. "Polite tone, clear boundaries, light sarcasm." He grinned. "That's your holy trinity." We clinked bottles, watched the game, and by halftime I realized something profound. The less I engaged with their drama, the smaller it got. Their narrative only thrived when I fed it energy, and I was officially on an emotional diet. Later, after Ethan left, I stood by my window again, my unofficial therapy spot, and thought about how weirdly freeing it felt to say no. People act like refusing chaos makes you cruel, but honestly, it's the kindest thing you can do for yourself. Somewhere out there, Isabella's parents were probably still rehearsing their speeches, blaming me for everything from climate change to their daughter's poor judgment. Let them. I'd learned something better than revenge: apathy with a good night's sleep. Before heading to bed, I poured a final drink, raised it toward the doorbell camera, and toasted quietly to Richard and Carol. May their next son-in-law come with a return policy. Then I took a sip, turned off the lights, and laughed softly to myself, because that was the real victory. Not the silence, not the blocked numbers, not even the peace. The real victory was knowing I didn't need to explain my side anymore. The truth had already packed its bags and was marching proudly behind them in their little parade. Thursday morning dawned with that weird, glassy kind of sunlight that makes everything look cleaner than it is. Like the world got power washed overnight by a very efficient angel with a hose. I woke up before my alarm, which either meant I was finally healing or my brain had decided sleep was for people who hadn't recently audited their relationships. Coffee, shower, fresh t-shirt, gym bag, boom. I was out the door with the confident stride of a man who changed all the passwords and slept like it. My gym isn't fancy, which is exactly why I love it. No eucalyptus towels, no influencer ring lights, no guy named Skylar selling powdered moon dust at the counter. Just iron, rubber, loud music, carpet that's seen things, and a front desk guy named Leo who looks like he could bench press a Ford Focus and then apologize for being in the way. I scanned in, shared the universal nod with the morning regulars, and headed to the rack for squats, because nothing says therapy like putting your problems on a bar and standing up with them until your thighs file a complaint with HR. I had just finished my second set when I felt it, the change in air pressure that warns you a storm is building behind you. I re-racked the bar, turned, and there she was by the treadmills like a plot twist in overpriced leggings. Belly visible, pony tie, too tight, eyes already shining with that watery film people use when they're about to ask for what they're not owed. The playlist switched songs right then, as if a DJ in heaven selected Drama Extended Mix. She approached like a diplomat crossing a demilitarized zone. "Daniel, just listen to me for 5 minutes," she said, breath hitching, volume calibrated to draw sympathy from distant cardio machines. I glanced at the clock above the mirrors, nodded once, and said, "You've got 3. Timer's running." A couple of dudes doing curls pretended not to eavesdrop with the focus of undercover agents. "I made a mistake," she said. "Matthew lied. He's married. He's a coward. He ghosted me. And she gestured at her belly as if I might have missed the headline. I'm trying to fix my life." "I believe you," I said, and meant it. "I just don't believe I'm the fix." "You're cruel," she whispered, like an actress testing the microphone. "You changed the locks. You canceled everything. I felt like I didn't exist." "You do exist," I said, "just not on my accounts." She flinched like the truth had sharp corners. "We shared a life." "We shared a lease and a playlist," I said. "The life part requires honesty." Her jaw set. "So that's it? You're just going to lift weights and pretend none of this matters?" "Not pretending," I said. "I processed. Now I'm squatting." She blinked at that, thrown off by the normalcy of it, like she expected violins, not chalk dust. "I'm scared," she said. "I don't have anywhere stable. My parents are unbearable. Matthew's wife threatened a restraining order if I text again. I keep waking up at 3 a.m. thinking I can't breathe." There it was, the tiny human truth under all the mess. For a moment, compassion flickered like a dashboard light. I wasn't made of stone. I was just done being used for heat. I lowered my voice. "I believe you're scared. I also believe you put yourself in the passenger seat of a car with no brakes because the driver promised great views." Her eyes watered. "I loved you." "If that was love," I said gently, "then love needs a better training program." She studied my face for a long second, maybe searching for the boy who used to bring her coffee and fix her LinkedIn typos. "What happened to the guy who would have done anything for me?" "He learned the word no," I said. "Turns out it's a full sentence." Leo wandered by, offered a cautious, "Everything okay here?" like a bouncer at a poetry slam. I nodded. Isabella sniffed, waved him away. "We're fine," she said. And Leo hovered just long enough to make it clear he'd be nearby if fine changed its mind. "Can you at least help me for a little while?" she asked. "Just until I'm stable. Pay the motel for 2 weeks. I'll figure the rest out." I wiped my hands on a towel and made myself say it plain, with no cleverness to hide behind. "No, Isabella, I'm not your emergency fund. I'm not your backup husband. I'm not the guy you come back to when the music stops." She inhaled sharply. "I never thought you could be this cold." "I'm not cold," I said. "I'm done being warm to people who set fires." A trainer across the room yelled, "Drive through your heels," at a client, and the phrase echoed inside me. Heels? Yes, I rooted mine to the rubber floor. "You need to talk to HR," I added. "Yours, not mine. Talk to a lawyer, make a plan, get receipts, and stop turning your consequences into my responsibilities." Her lip trembled. "I wanted a family." "And I wanted a partner," I said. "We both made wishes. Only one of us stole the coins." She stared at me with an anger that felt like grief wearing armor. "So that's it? You're going to watch me suffer?" "I'm going to watch you grow," I said. "Suffering is the part you can't skip." A trainer across the room yelled, "Drive through your heels," at a client, and the phrase echoed inside me. Heels? Yes, I rooted mine to the rubber floor. "You need to talk to HR," I added. "Yours, not mine. Talk to a lawyer, make a plan, get receipts, and stop turning your consequences into my responsibilities." Her lip trembled. "I wanted a family." "And I wanted a partner," I said. "We both made wishes. Only one of us stole the coins." She stared at me with an anger that felt like grief wearing armor.
So that's it? You're going to watch me suffer? I'm going to watch you grow, I said. Suffering is the part you can't skip.
She laughed once, small and bitter. You're different. I'm honest, I said, which probably feels different. We stood in that fluorescent stalemate while the room breathed around us. Plates clanking, ropes slapping, fans humming their industrial lullabies. She finally said, I can't go to another gym. This one's close to my doctor. I'm not banning you from fitness, I said. I'm asking you to respect my peace. So, you'll ignore me? She said. I will outwork the urge to respond, I said. It's a muscle. I'm training it. Something in her posture sagged, the fight draining like air from a tire. Do you ever think about the baby? She asked, quiet, almost childlike. Every time I choose mercy over revenge, I said. I don't drag your name online. I don't tell my mother the worst stories. I don't send those screenshots to your aunt. That's me thinking about the baby, keeping the world a fraction softer than I want to. She looked startled at that, like she hadn't considered restraint as a gift. Then help me, she said, one last Hail Mary. Please. I am helping, I said. I'm telling you the truth to your face. She wiped her cheeks, annoyed with her own tears. You sound like a therapist. Can't afford one, I said. Spent my refund on dumbbells. That almost made her smile. And for a second, the past wobbled into focus. Movie nights, chilly Sundays, the way she used to tuck her feet under my thigh when she was cold. I let the image come and go like a stretch I wasn't keeping. Okay, she said finally, voice scraped thin. I get it. You won't help. I won't rescue, I said. Different verb. She nodded, a stiff little motion of surrender, and turned toward the treadmills like a soldier dismissed. Halfway there, she pivoted back. One more thing, she said. Why are you so calm? Because I rehearsed this scene in my head 100 times, I said. And in every version, I picked me. She held my gaze, then gave the barest nod and walked away. I watched her step onto a treadmill, press buttons with the jittery decisiveness of someone trying to outrun a feeling, and I went back to the rack. The bar felt heavier. Of course it did. Clarity always weighs more than hope. I chalked my hands, ducked under, lifted, and thought about form. On the fourth set, Leo drifted close again. You good, man? He asked softly. I'm better than I used to be, I said, which is the whole point of this place, right? He grinned. Progress over ego, he said, patting the rack. Let me know if you need a spot. Between sets, I watched the room the way you do when your heart has calmed down enough to see other people again. A woman deadlifting her body weight like she'd made an appointment with gravity and refused to be late. An older guy on the rower, keeping time with quiet dignity. Two teens laughing too loud and learning what their bones were built for. Life, stubborn and sweaty, going on. I moved to pull-ups, then farmer's carries, letting the work rinse whatever residue the conversation left behind. By the time I hit the sled, breath coming in organized fires, I felt like a person with edges again. Isabella had shifted to a slow incline walk, eyes on some far point only she could see. Good. Let her stare at the horizon. Everybody needs one. That was enough. 3 months after the gym showdown of the century, life had finally gone quiet enough that I could hear my own thoughts again. And they sounded suspiciously like smooth jazz. No surprise visits, no handwritten manifestos, no late-night voicemails demanding closure. Just me, my coffee, and an ever-expanding playlist called Songs for People Who Dodged a Bullet. Things were good. So naturally, that's when Karma decided to drop by wearing heels and holding receipts. It started with a text from Ethan. Bro, you sitting down? I replied, it's 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Define sitting. He sent a screenshot of a social media post from a coworker at Isabella's old company. Apparently, Matthew's wife kicked him out, and HR is launching an investigation. Below it, a blurry picture of Matthew hauling cardboard boxes to a Camry that looked as tired as his soul. Caption, corporate scandal hits our office again. Hashtag leadership goals. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. Almost. See, Karma doesn't send you an email first. It just quietly sits in the corner waiting for the right dramatic lighting.
And when it shows up deluxe edition. Matthew's wife had apparently gone full detective mode, found out about the affair and the company funds he used for business dinners, and decided her next move was divorce plus public humiliation. According to Ethan, she'd even changed the locks and spray-painted "team" on the garage door. Subtle? No. Satisfying? Absolutely.
Meanwhile, Isabella's world was collapsing faster than a cheap lawn chair. She'd lost the apartment Matthew had been paying for. The Audi got repossessed because of course it did, and she moved back in with her parents. Remember Carol and Richard, the self-appointed moral police? Yeah. Apparently, they weren't thrilled about their daughter turning their guest room into a maternity ward/pity party. She posted a new profile picture anyway, her hand on her baby bump, captioned, "Strong women rise from ashes," except the ashes were unpaid bills. By lunchtime, I was neck-deep in the group chat with Ethan and Liam, giving play-by-play commentary like it was the Super Bowl of regret. Ethan, "Dude, she sold the Audi sound system on Marketplace for $150. Liam, "She's posting cryptic quotes like, 'People change when you stop funding their Netflix.'" Me, poetic, tragic, budget-friendly. Of course, I told myself I was above it all, that I didn't care. But come on, if Karma were a TV show, you'd watch every episode. I made popcorn. Around 6 p.m. that night, Ethan called, voice still shaking with secondhand amusement. "Bro, Matthew just posted on LinkedIn. He wrote an entire article about resilience through adversity?" I spit my drink. "You mean he cheated, lost his job, and turned it into a motivational post?" Ethan read it out loud. "Sometimes life challenges you to grow beyond your comfort zone. I'm grateful for the lessons pain teaches." I groaned. So he's basically rebranding as the Dalai Lama of bad decisions? Ethan snorted. His wife commented, "Glad you're learning something." 10,000 likes. That night, I sat on my balcony with a beer, watching the city lights blink like the universe was in on the joke. It hit me that I didn't even feel vengeful anymore, just weirdly grateful. You spend months thinking you'll never get justice, and then one day you realize justice has a great sense of timing. 2 weeks later, I ran into Ava, Isabella's sister, at a coffee shop. I was mid-order when I heard the icy voice behind me. Wow, guess Karma has favorites. I turned, smiled. "Ava, hey, still doing that Defend the Indefensible tour?" She rolled her eyes. "You're so smug." "Not smug," I said, "just well-rested." She snapped. "She's been through hell. She doesn't deserve this." I took my coffee from the barista, leaned on the counter, and said, "Deserve is a big word. Maybe save it for people who don't steal company cars for team-building activities." Ava scoffed. "You think you're better than her?" "No," I said. "I just think I'm better off." Then I smiled politely and walked out, leaving her to argue with the foam on her latte. That conversation stuck with me longer than it should have. On the drive home, I kept thinking about how people like Ava and Carol needed a villain to explain why their fairy tale burned down. I was their bad guy. And honestly, fine. If being the villain in someone else's story keeps you out of their sequel, it's a promotion. Weeks rolled by and rumors about Matthew and Isabella kept surfacing like bad sequels. Someone said Matthew moved back in with his parents to reflect. Someone else said Isabella was considering a tell-all podcast. I had one reaction to both. Please don't make me a guest. But the real news arrived one afternoon when Liam burst into my office like he'd won the lottery. "Bro, you are not ready. Matthew filed for limited child support." I blinked. "What's limited child support? Like child support on layaway?" Liam grinned. "He's claiming financial hardship. He says he can't afford to support the baby because he needs to rebuild his career. guy made 6 figures last year." I laughed so loud my boss peeked in to ask if I was okay. "Never better," I said, just watching karma finish her rounds. The next Saturday, I hit the gym again. Leah was at the front desk, nodded knowingly. "Bro, you see that news about that corporate guy who got caught cheating?" "Hard to miss," I said. He laughed. "People never learn. You don't mix business with pleasure unless you own the business and the pleasure signs an NDA." I nearly spit out my pre-workout. Later that night, I was scrolling my feed and saw a photo of Isabella, 8 months pregnant, standing in her parents' driveway, holding a baby shower cupcake. The caption, "Sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is start over." The comments were all variations of, "You got this," and "God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers." And right underneath, Carol had commented, "He will regret losing you forever."
I tapped the heart icon out of pure sarcastic support. Then I logged off. I didn't need to win that argument anymore. That's the thing about karma. It doesn't always hit like a Hollywood explosion. Sometimes it's a slow burn that cooks exactly the right people at the right temperature. 3 months ago, I was the punchline of someone else's story. Now I was just a guy sleeping 8 hours a night and eating vegetables voluntarily. Progress. One evening, I was sitting on my balcony again because apparently that's where I have all my epiphanies, watching a summer thunderstorm roll in. Lightning flashed across the sky, and for a moment it looked like someone was taking pictures of me from heaven. I thought about the old days, her laughter, the plans, the version of me that thought stability came from other people. Turns out, stability is a DIY project. You build it yourself, one boundary at a time. Then came the final confirmation that the universe had a sense of humor. A letter arrived in my mailbox, not from Isabella this time, but from a collections agency. Apparently, I'd been removed from the Audi lease months ago, but they still wanted a statement of release. I called the agent. "Sir, we just need to confirm that the vehicle was repossessed." "Oh, it was," I said cheerfully, "metaphorically and literally." The guy paused. "Excuse me?" "Never mind," I said. "Long story, great ending." When I hung up, I laughed until I cried. Sometimes you don't plan a punchline. Life just delivers one via certified mail. That night, Liam came over with pizza and said, "You realize you're basically a folk hero at this point. Half the office uses pulling a Daniel to mean cut off toxic people with style." I pretended to bow. My legacy is secure. He grinned. "Seriously though, man, you handled this whole thing like a pro." "Not a pro," I said, "just a guy who finally read the terms and conditions of his own piece." After he left, I cleaned up, stood in the quiet kitchen, and realized the story was ending itself. No grand revenge, no dramatic showdown with Matthew in a parking lot, no bitterness left to chew. Just me, calm, content, and ready for whatever came next. And maybe that's what karma really is. Not some cosmic hitman, but a slow, patient accountant balancing the books. One day you wake up and realize the universe closed the case months ago. I looked around my apartment, my place, my rules, my silence. And for the first time in forever, I felt something like relief. It wasn't revenge. It was closure with interest. And it tasted a lot like peace. It was one of those soft, indecisive afternoons where the sky can't decide if it's depressed or just lazy. I was sitting at the cafe across from my apartment. Same corner table, same chipped mug, same overpriced coffee that tasted like closure with a hint of burnt optimism when I saw her. 3 months since the repossession, 5 since the infamous phone call, and there she was on the other side of the street. Belly round, hair a little duller, eyes fixed on a grocery bag that looked heavier than her dignity. For a second, instinct almost made me stand up. Almost. But then I remembered her voice, clear as day. "I'm moving in with my boss, Matthew. We're having a baby together." And I stayed put.
stirring my coffee like I was conducting an orchestra of restraint. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and pretended not to. Either way, she was wobbling under those bags like the universe had decided to give her a workout plan called Consequences, Full Body Edition. I watched her drop one bag, grab it, and the corner of a cereal box peeked out. Some off-brand flakes that screamed budget life. My heart didn't ache, it shrugged. I took a slow sip and whispered, "Still congratulations," like it was a prayer for my own sanity. The barista, a college kid who always looked one assignment away from a breakdown, raised an eyebrow. "You say something?" "Just blessing the coffee," I said. He nodded like that made perfect sense in this economy. After she disappeared around the corner, I checked my phone. Nothing urgent. No new crises, no passive-aggressive messages, no relatives performing sympathy theater online. Just peace. It's wild how silence, once terrifying, becomes addictive when you realize it means nobody's lying to you that day. Later that week, the silence broke, but only slightly. I was at home scrolling through the never-ending chaos of social media when a message popped up from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Ava." Great. The ambassador of misplaced loyalty. The text continued. "Isabella had the baby. It's a boy. She's naming him Miles. She thought you should know." I stared at the screen for a long moment, thumb hovering over reply. Brain doing that thing where it pretends indecision is deep thought. Eventually I typed, "Tell her congratulations." Hit send. End of transmission. 30 seconds later came the inevitable follow-up. She could use some help with baby expenses. I actually laughed out loud, the kind of laugh that starts as disbelief and ends as cardio. I typed back, "Sure, ask Matthew's HR department." Then I muted the conversation. A few minutes later, Ethan texted me a screenshot of Ava's Facebook post. A baby photo wrapped in a hospital blanket with a caption that read, "Welcome, little miracle. Some people walk away, but angels stay." Ethan added, "You should probably frame this for the Hall of Audacity." I sent back a thumbs-up emoji and poured myself a beer. The truth is, I didn't even feel angry, just detached. Like watching a rerun of a show you used to love before realizing every plot twist was lazy. I scrolled through the comments. Carol had written, "Proud Nana, God restores what the devil steals." And Richard had dropped a single heart emoji like an absentee landlord of emotions. I didn't comment, obviously, but I did think, yeah, God restores, just not your daughter's credit score. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, sunlight sneaking through the blinds. It was one of those rare mornings where you feel like the world's giving you a soft restart. I made pancakes, real ones this time, not the protein kind I used to choke down when I thought I was being disciplined. Halfway through flipping the last one, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize, but something told me to pick up. "Daniel?" a tired voice said. It was her, Isabella. I could hear hospital machines beeping faintly in the background, the murmur of nurses. She sounded smaller somehow. "Hey," I said, evenly, setting the spatula down. "I just wanted to tell you he's healthy. Miles. 7 pounds 6 ounces. I know you probably don't care, but I care." I interrupted softly, "Just not in the way you want." She went quiet then. "I don't know why I called. I guess I just wanted to hear your voice." "That's nostalgia," I said. "It tricks you into thinking you missed the person when you actually just missed the piece before they broke it." She sniffled. "You always have a quote ready, don't you?" "Comes with surviving you," I said. A faint laugh escaped her, genuine but tired. "You hate me." "No," I said. "I outgrew you." We sat in silence for a few seconds, the kind that stretches like taffy. Then she said, "Matthew's not around. He said he needs to rebuild, whatever that means." "It means you should stop expecting rescue missions," I said. "I know," she whispered. Sometimes I wish things were simple again." "Simple," I repeated, almost smiling. "Simple was before you confused ambition with affection." That one landed. I heard it in her breathing. She finally said, "You really won't ever forgive me, will you?"
I already did, I said. That's why I'm not angry anymore. The line stayed quiet long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Then she said, barely audible, "Congratulations, Daniel. You got your piece." Click. Call ended. I stood there for a while, spatula still in hand, letting the weight of that irony settle. Congratulations. The same word I'd thrown at her like a paper airplane months ago. It circled back, this time without venom, and landed exactly where it belonged. The next few days passed in a blur of ordinary bliss. Work, gym, dinners with Ethan and Liam. Evenings spent reading instead of doom-scrolling. You know life's improving when your biggest problem is running out of clean socks instead of patience. One evening, I was walking home from the office when I passed a small park near the hospital. A woman was sitting on a bench, rocking a baby stroller, humming softly. For a second, I thought, no, couldn't be. Then she looked up. Isabella.
I froze mid-step, but she smiled faintly, like seeing a ghost she'd once known well. I nodded. She gestured at the stroller. "Miles," she said quietly. "He likes trees. They calm him." "Smart kid," I said. We stood there for an awkward minute, two ex-lovers politely sharing oxygen. Then she said, "I'm sorry for everything." I nodded again. Because forgiveness doesn't need a speech, just an understanding that the chapter's closed. "You look happy," she added. "I am," I said. "Turns out peace is cheaper than therapy." She smiled at that, tired but real. Then she looked down at her son. "He'll never know what happened between us," she said. "Good," I said. "Let him write his own story." She nodded. "Take care, Daniel." "You too, Isabella." And just like that, the universe performed its final magic trick, closure disguised as small talk in a public park. I walked away lighter than I'd felt in years. A few weeks later, life did what it always does. It kept going. I met someone new, actually. Her name's Elena. She's an architect, brilliant with sarcasm, allergic to drama, and the kind of woman who reads contracts before signing them. Our first date was simple. Burgers, fries, easy laughter, but it felt honest. I told her about my last relationship in broad strokes. No bitterness, just facts. She smiled and said, "So basically, you survived a reality show." "Exactly," I said, "and now I'm retired." 3 months into dating, I realized something crazy. I didn't check my phone anxiously anymore. I didn't rehearse arguments in the shower. I didn't crave revenge. I just lived. Elena and I built something quiet and steady, the kind of relationship you don't have to explain in group chats. One night, we were sitting on my balcony, my sacred spot, sharing a bottle of wine. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You ever think about the people who hurt you?" "Sometimes," I said, "but not to miss them, just to remember how far I've come." She nodded. Then, cheers to distance. We clinked glasses, and I swear the city lights winked in agreement. Weeks turned into months, and I hardly thought about Isabella anymore. Occasionally, I'd hear updates through the grapevine. She moved out of her parents' house, started freelancing online, maybe found therapy that didn't involve my wallet. Good for her. Everyone deserves a reboot, even the ones who crashed your system first. Then one afternoon, an email hit my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, "Thank you." I hovered over delete, but curiosity won. It was from Isabella. One line only. I meant what I said at the park. You got your piece. I'm still earning mine. Take care. No drama, no attachments, just punctuation. I smiled, closed the laptop, and whispered again, "Still congratulations." And for the first time since that absurd phone call months ago, the word didn't taste bitter. It tasted done.